Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Christ consciousness. Well, I'm going to give you an update on the process church, a particular area of research that I've been going further and further into to find out, is something happening? I'm going to try and give a monthly update of what is happening, and I've pretty much solved this mystery, which I'm not going to reveal right now, but I will go into that in intimate detail, quoting sources, etc. That's kind of unraveled why the process church has been demonized as much as it has. Which is kind of amusing when you look at what's happening in the world, what's going on, and how they become the red herring, the target of everyone. And it does make a lot of sense. Now, in my recent research, I read their official book. I've been getting their emails where they do their general fundraising and publicity. And I continue to try and look behind the scenes as best as we can. Now, I really have nothing new to report here in terms of what's going on with the process church that has been released recently. And to a large extent, it's like blaming a person for their teenage juvenile delinquent attitude and then labeling the person for the rest of their life about what they did when they were very young. It's pretty immature and pretty poor. But I have unraveled the mystery, and I will give you some hints before I make a complete lecture on it. And the bottom line is that the process church started out, which is the key link to everything, to Scientology, which is a bizarre and strange organization that was created by L. Ron Hubbard and built into quite an organization over the years, reaching great highs and generating lots of money. Even to this day, they seem to be taking in a lot of money, even though they apparently have few followers. We're just not sure. But they certainly have an organization that is 100% geared towards making money and promoting their reality. And there's an awful lot of people that have came out against them, and there's pluses and minuses about that. There's even shocking cases where people have been thrown to the dogs and allowed to die because they ran out of money. It's just too much of this to disregard. There doesn't seem to be very much that we can track to Scientology of anything of worth. They claim they do good work. I remember seeing John Travolta in some sort of truck at the Katrina hurricane, and he was there giving out stuff to people. And of course, that wasn't overly publicized. And of course, if the Church of Scientology seems to do anything good, nothing is publicized. They claim to have teaching institutions, books, etc., but good luck finding any of these things or getting to it. And if they're a great charity, why don't we see these popping up in so many places? They claim to have better teaching systems, new ways of teaching based on Scientology. These things have never really come to fruition very well. It has been rumored that schools were built under this particular training reality. That Tom Cruise's son went to, that were started by other celebrities, and they were horrible failures. The system didn't work. That was supposed to be an advancement in training. Well, I don't know, because regular training or teaching that we know of today hasn't changed in 100 years and is really horrible. People don't learn in this system. If you survive and prosper, you're one of the few lucky ones. The idiot system of reading out of a book and getting a stupid teacher that knows nothing to mouth basically what's in the book or read out of the book like many of them do certainly is not a good way to learn. We don't learn that way, and if you're able to adapt to that because you have a clonish attitude, some people call, oh, you're smart, you can learn the garbage taught to you. Oh, you're a genius. You got trash and you made it into a buffet. So the whole idea is that's what you look like in common schools. There's certainly nothing there of any value. They haven't figured out any way whatsoever to teach you how to learn. how to memorize, etc. So we just don't know that. So Scientology is a big key to all this, as I diverged yet again. But the point is that this is what the key to what's happened here. And now we understand why they've been labeled as bad as they had. Now, I believe that without any substantiation, that again, the Process Church was named the Process Church for a very small period of time of their existing. They had these goofy black robes and these strange buttons on, which never were satanic in nature. They were not Satanists in any way. They were kind of Gnostics, basically having a good philosophy. You know, you are, and this plane is entirely evil. Well, how can you say that anything in this plane is a part of, quote, the good God? If it is, the good God is one sick MF. What a perverse, deviant scum God is if you think he controls this plane. So the point is there's the different natures of man, the good nature and the bad nature. And what do you gravitate towards? Are you more Luciferian? Are you more satanic, meaning evil? Are you kind of in the middle, Lucifer? Or are you kind of the white knight, which is more the Jesus and Yahweh factor? So there's nothing overly strange about it. But if you're going to start a new religion, you're not going to stand up on the street corner in a white suit, black tie, reading out of the Bible. Everybody does this and gets nowhere. I've seen this 1,000 times. And, you know, people go in public and do this. They'll stand up and I remember the last time I saw this was in San Diego at Seaport Village, where they have a little place where people stand. And what did you get? A guy reading out of the Bible. Yeah, let's have that again. It's been going on for 2,000 years. And, gee, we've really got someplace. Yeah, Satan runs everything because the power of God in the Bible. So the whole idea is we need to understand that. And if you don't get that because you think that somehow your tirade against this church is somehow making you a good Christian, well, you really are effed in the head. So the whole idea is that we need to understand of where that goes and the process that's going on there. So in their original incarnation, which started off as a basic exact copy of the Church of Scientology, with a little bit of their own interpretations, didn't last very long. It couldn't make any money at that. They changed into this kind of strange and bizarre Gnostic church, which was very common belief system in the 60s, where everybody was rejecting things. They had their ass blown off in different wars. Society was pretty terrible. You couldn't get ahead. It came out of a semi-prosperic time of World War II, and all of this was happening. Everybody was loaded, and they were humping, and this is what was going on. And the answer was to take drugs and to think different. And that's what everybody did. So know your time and place. Very, very important. People overlook that. They overlook the fact that the time and place, which is rigidly controlled, is very important to the bigger picture. So that's what they did. It didn't work in Britain. They started in Britain, in London. They made a few strides, but it came up to the fact that nobody really ultimately liked them. They were smart enough, aggressive enough to put out publications, put celebrities on the cover. They had a coffee shop where people liked to hang out, which was typical 60s stuff. Let's hang out, man. We won't really do anything, but let's talk about what we want to do. You know, the hippies who created nothing. It really was about let's take drugs and hump. When that ended, there was nothing there. So they went from there into basically was a holocaustic situation of living in an abandoned structure in Mexico. And a giant tsunami came in. Then they moved to the Caribbean and almost starved to death. Oh, yeah, they're controlled. They're fed by government money. MI5 is giving them money. Yeah, that's right. It's a cover. They almost died from starvation. Well, ultimately, we don't know the full picture. They were able, as a group, like any relatively smart and motivated group was, they were able to go out and beg effectively, and you can make a lot of money. That person who you drop a few dollars or coins in a cup at a local a street corner or whatever, you'd be surprised if it's a busy street corner how much money you can make. It's amazing. You know those street magicians you see out there and musicians playing guitars and everything? You know they can make $300 or $400 a day in a busy place. You know, that money adds up. I was shocked when I got the numbers of these street musicians and entertainers of how much money they would make. As a matter of fact, this was the business that Pierce Brosnan was in before becoming an actor, and he made a fortune there as he ran a whole group of street musicians, entertainers, jugglers, mimes, and all the other things out there, and was making thousands and thousands of dollars a day. So they were able to efficiently beg, and were smart enough to put together a meeting location. Coffee houses are very profitable. Coffee costs 2-3 cents a cup, and if you sell it for 50 or even $1, well, you're making hundreds and hundreds of percent profit on it. Add a little food in there, and you're wallowing in money heaven. Add into publications of magazines and other things, and you are able to generate quite a bit of money. And that's what they were able to do for a period of time. Then they went to these other things, almost starved to death, and ended up apparently somehow, and this is where things get a little bit complicated, even though apparently members of the group were pretty much wealthy to upper middle class Brits who brought a lot of money with them. So they had a fair amount of money. So once they left England after doing that, which were a lot of bad business decisions, they started to end up in America, of course, where all the money is. And they were smart enough to repeat the same things they were doing. And if you get enough people begging out there, as I've mentioned, you can make a lot of money. I mean, the Hare Krishnas have ran their entire organization, particularly in the 70s and 80s, from having their followers sell flowers and airports and other things. Well, of course, it's free, isn't it? You pay them nothing, give them 50 cents a day to live on, and they're selling flowers, which apparently made them a lot of money. And this was a real problem, particularly in Los Angeles, where I grew up. They were everywhere, and they were very annoying. But apparently, they were able to make lots of money. But they made it from begging, and I don't know how much of that was spent on drugs to live that horrible lifestyle, but who knows? So they transitioned in this, and they kept changing their name. They kept going from this radical black-robed, wearing these strange amulets, which were, by the way, not pentagrams. They were not upside-down crosses. They never once used a satanic symbol ever. They used crosses combining good and evil. They had a serpent on the cross to state the balance between good and evil. Which, maybe if we recognize the power of evil, we wouldn't be in the pedophilia, disgusting society we live in today that thinks nothing of murdering, torturing, and abusing every possible thing on this planet, including the wonderful, peaceful, loving animals, to all the base children who are just used like they're garbage. How pathetic. Maybe if we recognize that, we do something about it. But certainly your crossy churches, your born-again Christians, do absolutely nothing. Well, let's take that back. I know exactly what they do. I had a couple of them work for me. They work for Satan. They are Satan. They work for evil. They screw you over when you're trying to do something good. I'm a Christian. That's right. I'm as evil as you get. You wonder why Satanism hasn't went anywhere? Well, that's the reason. I quit my Catholic church because they tried to run me down in the parking lot every time I went. They pushed me in the aisles because they were full of Jesus' love. Well, they were full of love. They'd love to bend you over, as most of the Catholics are so into. But the whole idea is that that's the reality of it. So the bottom line is that we need to understand this and to demonize this organization who for the last 30 years has done magnificent work in the saving of animals, making sure there are no-kill animals, shelters all over the United States. Their goal is to be that no animals are ever killed. Is certainly a good one. And certainly something that they've struggled to do. Now, per their book, and of course, I don't believe anything 100%, as they went through difficult times. They were able to figure out with a small group how to keep organizations running. They moved from Arizona, which apparently they had a big animal sanctuary there. And of course, there were no murders in Arizona at that time. Huh? You lying scumbuckets that want to blame them for everybody? Well, where was the murders in Arizona while they had their ranch over there? Where were all these heinous crimes? Huh? Don't exist? Yeah, but you poor investigators, you terrible pundits that want to blame somebody because you're too cowardice to go after the real people. Hiding in your bathroom because you can't talk about the real Satanists. So the whole idea is that we need to understand this fact. So let's get involved in that. So once they have started this animal sanctuary, which was a big struggle. Unfortunately, they were selling land and getting paid monthly for the note on that, and those people stopped paying, and because they ran into problems, apparently with some sort of city problems. The government or city where that wouldn't allow the developer to develop, apparently, or something like that. Oh, maybe that was done deliberately. Maybe their source of income was cut off so that they could hurt them because they were doing good work instead of what is considered the other way around. So they started this, has been going. They're an organization now that's taking in close to $100 million a year. Now, I find this a little bit suspicious, but it's got to be. I mean, they're a nonprofit. Every penny they take in has to be accounted for. That's the law. Understand that, and their records are public. Anytime the government wants to check on them, they can because they're a nonprofit. That's what nonprofits open themselves up to. We are allowing you not to pay profit taxes. This means that we own you. A lot of people don't know that about nonprofits, and nonprofits pay all sorts of taxes, including payroll and other taxes. I had a nonprofit. I know. Not secondhand, not I heard he from Frankie. Oh, my buddy had a nonprofit. No. Maybe you get that from other people. You don't get that from me. I've done it. I've lived it. I've been there. I know from the trenches. Other people lie to you, and I don't know what planet they come from, period, because they're just stating lies. So the point is they had this great problem. It's all documented in that book written about them. And everyone should read that has some sort of problem with this organization, who went from this bizarre organization, and that's how you make money. Well, we do it all the time. People that put on stages, all these rap groups and rock singers who run out there naked, or Madonna who wants to put on a whole show at S&M so that she attracts us. Sex ain't nothing no more. Let's get into S&M and we'll have a whole show on it. Ooh, let's bring in the 11-year-old girls. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that goes on. So you should need to grow up, pull your head out, because it's very firmly planted in there when I hear from these bozos out there. So the whole idea is that's what they did. Now, there has never been any direct link between anything. I don't care what some bozo of son is. I saw this guy at the meeting. He had a bowler hat on with a flower in it, and he said he was Process Church. I don't care what that is, and I don't care if someone says they are representatives of this or that. They were trying to survive and other things. Who knows? A lot of people state that they are members of this or that or representatives. None of the main people were ever linked, so some idiot was doing that. But you have to understand that the criminal elements, which may have been involved in absolutely everything from pedophilia, child molestation rings, to murder, to all the other things, including huge amounts of sales of drugs, were all mixed together. So if you were a drug seller, you ran into these people, and nobody talked back then, and they still don't talk. Because the people involved in this are very wealthy people, and they all have their personal executioners and scumbuckets, otherwise known as local corrupt law enforcement. They're all together. You're not going to fight that. So the fact that the processed church may have been hanging around areas because they were trying to figure out how to survive and were able to gain members because of the time it was. Everybody in the 60s joined groups and did things very similar to the 1920s where everybody went, them occult Euros, particularly the Nazis that were into the occult. They were not. They had clubs, and anybody who knows anything about German society understands that all Germans are members of 2 or 3 clubs. You don't get that because you're stupid. You don't know the facts. Because you heard something from some bogus liar. So the bottom line comes that people have to understand. So I believe that the processed church probably was involved in selling drugs. Everybody was. Every single of the Manson family. Everybody was selling drugs, and everybody was in line to get them. It was easy, big money. And you didn't have to get a 9-to-5 job where the minimum wage, I think, was $1.50 in 1960. I remember in the early 70s where I worked for $2.20 an hour as minimum wage for Magic Mountain. $2.20. So in 1960, it probably was $1.20. So the point is that everybody was selling drugs, everybody wanted them, and most people didn't consider them a problem. It was the time of drugs and sex. So you took lots of drugs, you had lots of sex, and everybody was semi-happy. But they found out that that really wasn't happiness either. Because none of that makes you happy. Nothing makes you happy. You have to decide to be happy. So that's what was going on. The fact that they may have been involved in that, oh, what a shocker. And of course, there's no proof that that was the case anyway. So eventually they evolved from this property in Arizona. They raised a lot of money by begging on the street for animal causes which people support. They turned this into, in some bizarre and strange way, and that's what I still question, into a tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars as this sanctuary over 30 years. The bottom line is that if you read about them online from their detractors and their supporters, and you find out how they're rated by the charity rating organizations, they don't do so good. Neither does the World Wildlife Federation, which has been linked to mercenaries and taking over countries and murdering people, working with criminals who they go in and say, well, we got to help where the elephants live. And that's a certain square miles. And then they take over hundreds of square miles more. And they turn these over to mining people, oil people. And apparently the World Wildlife Fund is ran by some sort of Nazi. Let's ignore them. Let's give them lots of money. Let's put their stickers on your notebooks. I remember having a sticker of theirs. I donated money to them. Yet they've been accused of horrible, horrible crimes and murdering natives, etc. So they set up people to protect the animals, which they go in and hire mercenaries to do this. The mercenaries then take over the whole country. Ooh, sweet. And it goes on and on with all of these. And it's amazing when you look at the record of things like PETA, all these organizations you think are helping animals. They have a really bad rating as a nonprofit organization. And of course, that's what this organization has. Well, they're heavy in nepotism. The top of the organization is ran by a bunch of related people by marriage and birth and friends and buddies. It's top heavy with people who are in the order. But of course, that's where a lot of the money goes. They seem to be a little more top heavy, even though it seems still to be, as their rating with where the money goes, it's very appropriate. But the top heavy, they're all working together. Is that bad? I'm not sure that's bad. You have a lot less controversy than bringing in somebody from Harvard. Well, we need to run this charity this way. And we shouldn't help here. And of course, Daddy owns a gold mine. And, we're going to operate this way. Nobody's taking care of each other. Yo. Yes, Levy. I'll be there soon for tea. So does that really work? I'm not sure. It's hard to criticize, but I believe in running things properly. And while I have no problem assisting friends and relatives, but they should be paid fairly and be doing their job. But generally, if we look through history, it's been people who work with their children, their wives, their relatives as part of their organization because you're supposed to be able to trust them better. And throughout history, everybody stabbed you in the back, so you were hoping, and that's not necessarily the case, because there's an awful lot of cases of brothers killing brothers for rule of the kingdom. But generally, you thought that that would be okay. So the whole idea is that they're not the best run organization per other groups. Now, I'm not sure what all that means. Again, as I've just stated, some of this is good, some of it is bad. There doesn't seem to be any direct accusations of illegal or terrible activities. The workers are underpaid and overworked. What a shocker that is. Don't they print that on your Amazon check? Because that's what everybody says about them. Or Walmart, who doesn't pay you a living wage. There are a certain percentage of Walmart employees, Disney employees. They're on food stamps. They can't live on their pay. Oh, but it's only the animal sanctuary. You know, them rotten processed church people. Were basically nothing more than Christians. And their philosophy wasn't much different than Christianity. They attracted people's attention by directly recognizing Lucifer and Satan, which is recognized anyway in the Bible. Isn't that what most ministers, reverends live by when they're humping the kids in the church and cheating on their wives? So, or having gay communication. So it's very hard to demonize this organization that's doing so much, that's working around the country to doing so many things. They're criticized because they have a couple of planes. This is a $100 million charity. If you want to get around and contact people and not have to lose days and hours through using commercial transportation, you have your own planes. Most people do that are this kind of an organization. Now, is that abused? I have no idea. What people don't know is when you own a plane, you generally don't own the plane in its typical way that you think you park it in your garage and take it out when you need it, like you own a car. Most planes are leased out to other organizations consistently. So this is how the game is played. So the whole idea is you own a plane, but it's too expensive to keep on your own, so you're leasing it out to other people for other uses, etc. That's how it works. So another thing you don't know. So I don't know how all that works. I don't know what their actual salaries are. I don't know how many people are making what in there. But the bottom line, without spending hours going through all that stuff, they're like everybody else in this industry and most others, by the way. I always talk about the Red Cross. They have over 8 or 10 members that are making over $500,000 a year to help the poor. I want to help the poor, but I want to be paid like a rich man. That's why. I remember 9/11 when they looked at me funny when I said, "Don't you want to give to the Red Cross?" I said, "Hell no, lady. I'm not giving to them thieves." "Oh, you're such scum. You don't want to give to the Red Cross." Giving to the Red Cross, just dip your money in whiskey and light it. At least you'll get a show. So, it's the most wasted time you could ever do. It's a god-awful, horrible organization that does terrible work internationally. Let's talk about that. Now, one of the things that they've been criticized with, and I have one person who seems to be psychotically connected to that, is that apparently, as part of their work, they have went out and tried to normalize laws against pit bulls. Now, no dogs ultimately are bad. And if you give them love, they give it back to you. Now, the people that own pit bulls are the lowest scum on the planet. And, of course, what do they do with that? They beat and molest their children, their gang members, their criminals. I know, as a matter of fact, I know one of the head of that runs one of the most horrific Latin gangs. He loves pit bulls. He's got pet bulls. They murder people on the street and they got pet bulls. But those pet bulls are used for one thing and one thing only. Remember that these are used for protection. They have pet bulls and they use them as guard dogs. And of course, most of them are abused and everything else, as we kind of with that Michael Vicks, who should be in prison for the rest of his life. And they ought to check his children, because people that abuse animals are also molesters of children. It's a known fact. I don't know what happened to him, but as far as I'm concerned, there's only one penalty with that, with so money. He's a traitor. He's a traitor to the human race. And all traitors ought to be hung, and they ought to be hung on a rope, like politicians and so many other traitors. These are national security issues. People who act like that are untrustworthy at every level. But besides that, they tried to normalize law. They were the one who got those dogs, they rehabilitated them, etc. And of course, like most animals, when you show them love, they give it back. Unlike humans, who'll stab you in the back for a nickel. So the whole idea is that's the way it goes. But, I'm not a big fan of these kind of dogs. I did have Dobermans for many years, who are probably some of the nicest, smartest animals out there. And they can be very fierce, and you have to be careful with them. But ultimately, Dobermans are not vicious. They don't hurt people for no reason. I stopped having Dobermans because they have terrible health problems, and you basically break your heart after 5 or 6 years because they get sick. So the whole idea is that some of the dogs that are the dumbest dogs on the planet are pit bulls and Rottweilers, which you have to really you discipline them with a baseball bat, which is not really the way to work with it. They're dumb, low mentality animals, and you combine that with, who do you think buys them? Dumb, low mentality humans. So you have problems. So now this person claims that because of their lessening of the laws that they push through, that's what they use part of their money for, that attacks on humans have went skyrocketed. I think she uses the term 600%. Well, so what? I'm not improving. People have to take responsibility. If that happens, you got to get your ass suit off, maybe even be facing jail time. You don't take care of your animal properly because you're a mental case and get a dangerous dog. Well, it's not the dog's problem. Just like guns are not gun problems, it's people problems. So if you have a dangerous situation, you learn, and they should license these people to learn how to, and these kind of dogs need to be trained because they're made into mental cases that attack people. And these aren't like Dobermans, who may bite you, and they're known for biting, but they don't continue to. They'll bite you, drop you, and you move on. So there's a big difference, and of course they got a bad rep as well. But they claim that this is not a big issue to me. We got 33% of our American children live in poverty. 60 to 70% of the population doesn't have medical care. We have over 20 million people homeless. Let's get real here. You're worrying about this dog issue, which could be controlled very easy? Really? So, they're a terrible organization because they didn't want to demonize a particular breed, because the real problem is the owner, not the dog. Well, that's a stretch to me, and I think you ought to pull your head out and get particularly understanding what serious problems are or not. I would spend my energy trying to help those 33% of American children that live in poverty, that don't have medical care, while billions are given to Nazi Ukrainians who have been working against Western civilization. That's okay with you? Oh, we must help them little scumbuckets who train their troops after 30 minutes, then give them a gun and put them in the front line, and they got one potato a day. $30 billion. Well, the Swiss bank account of them are big, aren't they? Fighting against people who are protecting their borders and protecting their citizens, who the Ukrainians were murdering. Oh, did I confuse you with the facts? When I first came out and talked about that, I was demonized. Them poor little Ukrainian Nazis. The Adolf Hitler division that runs the entire government. The government outlawed all other parties. Good American, yeah. We ought to run him for governor of Texas. Sounds like my boy. That's the kind of guy we want running our great state of Texas. We kind of have one right now, but he sounds better. So these are the kind of things that we have to fully understand of what's going on. So there still is zero evidence in this time. Now, the only statements that I have tracked down that have come out is that some person approached the apparently honest James Rothstein, the New York detective who was thrown out of or forcibly retired for following the law, and has been doing some good work to let people know about the pedophilia ring that runs the entire world, that nobody cares about, that you allow the children to be raped and used as prostitutes and nobody cares. Now that's shocking and true. Now, he's come out and said that for 3 weeks, somebody stayed with him, telling him what this organization was up to. He did not elaborate on what that was. Now, the offhand insinuation is that they were continuing, and he stated that these kind of things never change. They just kind of go underground a little bit. So he was insistent, but he won't come out and make any statements, even though I feel this is a terrible cop-out, and a guy like him should do a little better. You certainly can insinuate, you can say, I don't know, it's alleged, etc., to find out, well, what are you accusing them of? How can anybody investigate anything? Well, we don't know. He was insinuating that they were up to their same old kind of criminal activity. Now, I don't know any of that, but there certainly is nothing linking them. But, we do have criminal organizations out there. They're called all the Mexican street gangs that run the world. What about all the mafias? What about the Cuban mafia, the Russian mafia that run entire New York City and have taken over from the Italians, apparently? That's what Giuliani did and got Trump. We don't care about them? We only care about this animal sanctuary group. Is that right? Okay, well, that's interesting. So we let them go. And, of course, we've eliminated the Italian mafia, at least to some degree, and gone after. And what has that done? None of the real mafia has gone after. The Russians are never eliminated. They're not arrested. The Latins that are by the millions in the United States that run everything. The Russian mafia runs huge pedophile and prostitution rings. They control child welfare in Los Angeles. Pit bull people, they want laws so you can own a pet bull. Let's get them. Oh, come on. What's going on here? So, if every organized crime group had a positive front to them that helped children and animals, well, I think I would support organized crime. So certainly there's some weird garbage going on there. So there's absolutely nothing that we can track to them whatsoever. There's no new information coming out. Now, this person who spent 3 weeks with Rothstein was in the early, I think it was 2009, which is a huge amount of time ago. So, we're talking 15 or so years ago where this information came to him and he feels he knows what they're up to. Now, the problem is he got this demonization of everything from a particular person, which was incorrect. And he thought this person had validity, and then he is accusing the Process Church of doing things. There's absolutely no connection to this at all. Absolutely nothing. There's no proof whatsoever. I'm looking tired. I'm sick and tired of hearsay and lies while we have filthy, dirty scum who are torturing children, forcing people into prostitution, kidnapping them off the streets, and nobody has. Let's get the Process Church because they got funny things on. Let's call them Satanists when they're not, when they never use a satanic symbol ever in their history. But you're going to lie about that, and you're going to demonize, which is kind of an amusing term, a Satanist. For what particular reason? Because everybody else is perfect? They're the bad guys. Well, you haven't looked at the history of what's going on with all the Christian and other organizations who readily support this and are involved in all these other things. Now, these are the real big fish to fry, and everybody wants to go after the red herring. So there's absolutely zero evidence. So whatever was told to James Rothstein, who apparently is a good, honest cop, one of the few, and can't do much because there's nobody helping him. And he states it even to this day. Nobody helps him. There are no laws that protect him. So, and nobody is interested in him telling everybody how terrible things are going on. There's no support. Now, that's something you ought to talk about. I'm looking sick and tired of everybody trying to go after this organization. The latest is they own a lot of rental property around the sanctuary. You scum. Now we got to the heart of it. You animal sanctuary people had the nerve to do the most evil thing you could. Buy investment property. Oh, take them out. Let's string them up. Let's kill them for investing their money in rental properties, because they need that, because a lot of people want to go to that sanctuary and help them. They want to donate time. It's in the middle of nowhere. So they own rental property. They ought to be owning a giant hotel there, and I'm not sure why they don't. They have a small hotel on the property. But, there are laws that govern when you're a nonprofit. So I know what's going on and where the money. But God, you scum. I find you buy one more rental property and I'll go ballistic. Look out. What's really happening with rental property is conglomerates are getting together, buying houses and apartment buildings, and then passing laws so you can't build other apartment buildings, and then they raise the rent. Praise Jesus. Praise Jesus. Pass the ammunition. We need more good thinking, loving people like that. They buy buildings, they stop the other ones, and then they triple the rents. Right from Jesus' mind. Thank you. But let's go after these people, because after all, them helping them animals, them vicious animals, them dogs that some psycho trains to kill. Uses them for dog fights. Yeah. That's what them people are doing. So, this is the same kind of maniacal nonsense that I've heard for so many things. And it's always interesting that people are willing to demonize so many people so easily. And yes, I'm very familiar with this, because as a person who started out in occult sciences and still practices, everybody they think that's involved in occultism, including so many idiot commentators, think that you are involved in some negative practices, that you're roasting babies in the backyard, and that's what occultism is about, when it says absolutely nothing. That's just ignorant. We had ignorance like that when they strung up the black man. We had groups to enforce that, the KKK. All them great, wonderful things. That's the same kind of mentality, or the great Christians who work with all the scumbucket Satanists is what they really work for, and support them over good people. This is revolting. So I will continue my research, but absolutely nothing has pointed towards these people doing anything. Are they great at business? Are they the greatest? Well, I haven't found any good business. Businesses that make fortunes exploit their workers, like Walmart and Amazon. They won't take care of their workers. The Amazon workers are tracked every second wherever they go, even into the bathroom. They watch you to make sure. The gossip is that if you work over 3 years, they fire you because they don't want anybody getting comfortable. They don't want long-term workers. They want people they can keep fearful and stressed out. In terms of any kind of wages, they don't pay very decent wages in this day and age. Because they pay mediocre wages, I don't give them any credit at all. $15 an hour is not enough money to live. The minimum wage should be $20 an hour and go up. So and Walmart does it. Walmart employees get food stamps. Disney employees get food stamps because they're not paid enough to survive. Many of these people live in trashy little hotels in Florida, I just saw in a special. That's all they can afford. They have no medical care. They're getting paid nothing. Thank you, Disney. All American, we love the family. The outrageous prices they charge for everything. It's just a great exploitation that's going on. So to blame these people as something unique or different is really bogus. It holds no value. So in terms of anything coming out, and then there's not. Whatever gossip, whatever nonsense was told James Rothstein, ex-detective James Rothstein, well, we never know because he's not sharing it. Nobody else is coming out stating anything. When they were slandered early on in the UK and in the United States, they sued those people. In the United States, they won. Unfortunately, in the UK, they had other problems because they didn't put up a decent enough defense. They thought they could easily win that. But they won in the United States and had the lies about them taken out. They certainly aren't involved in anything that we know of to any great extent. What's going on behind the scenes is what? We don't know. What's going on behind the scenes of anything? We certainly know that government is supporting organized crimes, criminals, and everything else. And that's where your money goes through. You just gave $40 billion to Nazi criminals in the Ukraine who were attacking the Russians. We know that for a fact. And only 8 people voted against that. They were all Republicans. Bernie Sanders, I'm a socialist with 5 houses and millions of dollars, thought voting for that was perfectly okay. Americans don't need that because we have all that socialized medicine. We have all those things that we need to survive as a race of people. We have all of that, right, Bernie? Oh, we don't. Forgot about that. So all of this stuff needs to be addressed in a proper fashion. And to go after these red herrings is insulting. It's a waste of time, and I have to wonder who these people really are. You're plants for people that want this continued, so everybody's looking at them while the real criminals, the real murderous pedophilia cults continue to prosper at unbelievable levels. And the big scapegoat seems to be the processed church. And of course, as I will cover in another lecture, Michael Aquino. Now, there still has been no direct evidence for any of this. The processed church has been linked to nothing, and you'll find out soon why they have been demonized and who did it, and the chain of information that keeps being repeated, one thing after another. One person says it, another author picks it up, and this is how the chain of disinformation and lies is continued. And then good people pick it up and then repeat it again, like apparently James Rothstein, who got bad information, thinking it's good, and then follows through with that. So I would have to see proof of any of this. And somebody coming to me, telling me they know something and giving me their story, well, why would they do that? What's the point of that? They worked for a bad organization, and then they decided they want to be good? No, they're disgruntled employees, or worse, possible plants to feed you information about what is going on that is untrue for whatever benefit that will be for whatever person sent that person in there for. So don't think that doesn't happen. Disinformation, implants of information, people that are paid to tell stories happen all the time. So one of the problems with all these investigators that come up with this information is they don't seem to understand this. They don't understand that people would actually be paid to go there and lie to them. They think they're the white knight. Well, I helped this person. I saved their life. Why would they possibly lie to me? You know, you have to be very naive to think that. And I used to think that, and I helped a lot of people who stabbed me in the back, who traitored me, who didn't care how much I did for them, how much I helped them, how much information I gave them, how I got them on. They didn't give a damn. They sold out for nickels. And they deliberately spread lies and betrayed me. And do you think that somebody went to this ex-police detective and spent 3 weeks at his own cost, I'm assuming, to talk to this detective? Why? Certainly they didn't publish anything. Certainly anything isn't out there. Why? Well, this is an implant or even more untrustworthy, are disgruntled, lying, cheating, scumbucket employees that want to talk you down after you helped and supported them for literally years, is what happened with me on many employees that were then turned for pennies. Cowardice, sniveling liars. So why would this guy tell him anything? What's the point of it? And everybody seems to be afraid of even talking about it. They will even come out and say this is alleged against this organization. And why is that? Usually that alleviates any kind of potential lawsuit. So what's the problem? You can't say what may be going on. People do this all the time with a whole bunch of people in organizations. Why isn't this coming out about others? So this is one of the problems of the lack of information that you constantly get from these secretive sources, that I fully understand that it is dangerous, but they've already put their head on the chopping block. Would being a little more detailed about some people and places be that big of a problem? Well, I don't know. And of course, it's difficult to get anybody's opinion of this so that we can in any way get down to the meat of what's going on. So the update here is there is little to nothing happening. There's nothing coming out. It's all hearsay and stories, and the disinformation has been deliberately stated about this organization to make them look bad by their enemies, and I will release this soon. It's all the same thing. It doesn't add up. And there's never any prosecutions. There's never any real facts. There's a bunch of hearsay and nonsense that nobody can prove. And they want to demonize everybody for no particular reason whatsoever, unless they're being paid to do this. And that's exactly what is happening. These people are paid disinformation agents, and that's what they're told to do. And it goes up to the highest levels. So stay tuned, more information to come as it becomes available.